All right, guys, today we're going to do dimensional analysis. We're going to save scientific notation for another day, but dimensional analysis is going to be a step up from our unit conversions that we were just doing. So we're going to go through these notes, and then we will do some practice examples, and then we'll work on some problems in class. So the whole point of dimensional analysis is converting numbers into different units without changing their value. So it's the same thing we were doing where we were saying that there were 2,000 milligrams inside of 2 grams. But now we're going to be doing things like inches to feet, where it's not just really easy to move things over. We're going to have different values. So these are things that are useful when you're baking or you're cooking. So let's say that you're making cookies and you want to bring them to class, but you have to make like 5 times the amount that the recipe says. This is when we would use that. And if you are using, or if you're traveling to a foreign country that uses different units, we talked about that a little bit. In any building or engineering, so in construction, you would do this a lot when you are trying to convert different units from maybe feet to centimeters, or you're trying to make sure that something's going to fit in a certain space. And we do this by multiplying the numbers that we're given by our conversion factors to get the units that we want. So a conversion factor isn't as scary as it sounds. It's just a ratio of equivalent values, meaning that equals 1. So in all of our problems that we were doing, when we were saying like there were 1,000 meters over 1 meter, that equals 1. So it's still going to be the exact same idea, but now we're not going to use numbers like 100 and 1,000. So how many hours are in a day? That would be one example of these. So we have 24 hours in a day, or 24 hours over 1 day. It's the same idea that we were doing before, but we just have different numbers. We could also say that 1 day over 24 hours is the same thing because they both equal 1. So it just depends on how we want to set up our problem for what units we want to cancel out. There's that note if you want to write that down. So another example, 12 inches equals 1 foot. So we would write this wanting it to equal 1. I don't know where. There it is. Where 12 inches is over 1 foot. So we have a fraction essentially that equals 1 over 1. Or you can flip-flop that as well. And 7 days equals 1 week. Or 7 days will go on top of 1 week because they equal each other. They equal 1. And you can flip-flop that as well. But how we're going to actually do this to our problems. So you're going to write down the number that you're starting with in the units, just like we were doing before. Then you're going to either draw a picket fence, or what we were doing was just doing our different fractions with multiplication in between. And then use the chart to fill in the conversion factor. Now you want to make sure your units are matching, and the units that match are on opposite sides. So if you want to cancel out your days for a week, then you would put days on top over here and days on bottom over here, because we would cancel those out because they make the same thing. And then you're going to multiply straight across just like we did in class. Then you would do the actual math in your calculator of dividing what is on the top of your fraction by what is on the bottom. So let's go through how many seconds are in 1 year. So 1 year, they're drawing, this is their picket fence. It's the same idea as our multiplication. So I know that I want to cancel out 1 year. So it's going to start on top, and there's that imaginary 1 underneath of it. I'm doing this on the table instead, sorry. So we have 1 year on top, and there's an imaginary 1 underneath of it. We want that 1 year on top to cancel out with 1 year down here on the bottom. So we know that 1 year is made up of 365 days. That's the one obvious thing that we know just from our heads, so we would write that on top. But we want to get to seconds, so we need to make it even simpler. So we need to cancel out days. So we're going to put 1 day on the bottom of our next row. So that our 365 days, we take the unit for day and the unit for day in the bottom on the next. And we know that 1 day is made up of 24 hours. They are the exact same amount of time. We're going to do the same thing for hours. So next we have 1 hour. What's the unit of time that we know goes into 1 hour? It'd be 60 minutes. So we can now cancel out our hours. And then we're trying to get to seconds, but we have to cancel out minutes. So our unit for minutes goes on the bottom, and we know that there are 60 seconds in each minute. So our units are going to cancel out again there. We're left with our only units, our seconds. We're going to multiply the top straight across, and then you multiply the bottom straight across. And we don't really need the math or calculators to do this here because we can just ignore the 1. And our answer is 31,536, or 31,536,000 seconds are in 1 year. So let's go through how many feet we have in 250.4 centimeters. So we start with centimeters, but we want to get to feet as our end result. So we are going to use a number that will be given to us. We're going to put centimeters opposite so that they cancel out. And 2.54 centimeters is how much is in 1 inch. That is going to be in your notes as a conversion factor. And then we want to cancel out inch. So we put 12 inches on the bottom because that gives us 1 foot. So we do have to kind of think ahead. You want to fill in your units and then fill in the numbers that you know. We multiply those straight across. With our units, we get 250.4 feet divided by 30.48. And when we do our calculator, we find out that our final answer is 8.22 feet. So this is something you might use in construction. They might have sent you something in metric, like, I don't know, a really long piece of plywood, and you have to make sure that it's cut down to just the right amount. So this conversion factor chart is in your notes. This is something that you are going to be using for all of your different practice problems. Make sure that you have your notes with you. This and the chart from Concept 1 you will be able to use on any quizzes you take in class, but you have to have them ready to go. So let's do some of these practice times together. Let me grab a piece of paper and we'll get started. Okay, so our first problem, I'm going to go ahead and copy this information down. Okay, so let's look at this first practice time here. I know I have my answers posted up there, but it's fine. So I'm going to start with 3.6 liters, and I know I want to get to gallons. The first thing I'm actually going to do is create a game plan for how I'm going to get from liters to gallons. And remember, my information is here on this conversion factor chart. So liters into gallons, I have to figure out what I have for both of those. So it looks like the only thing I have that equals liters is milliliters. So I'm going to go from liters to milliliters. My end result over here is gallons. And the only thing that I have that goes into gallons is quarts. So I have a lot of options with milliliters where I can go from there. So I'm going to start looking backwards from quarts. So what do I have that can convert into quarts? Well, I have quarts and pints. And I don't have a milliliter that converts into pints, but I can do cups. And I have a milliliter into cups. So that's how I can connect it. It's a bit of a puzzle trying to figure out some of these longer ones, but they're going to be really easy to do once you've got the method down. So now that I have this, I can create my fence or I can just multiply my fractions. I have 3.6 liters that I start out with on top of a 1. I know I'm going to cancel out my liters and go to milliliters. So I look at my conversions and I have 1,000 milliliters inside of 1 liter. So those are equal to 1. And then I'm going to go from milliliters to cups. So I have 1 cup and 236 milliliters. Then I'm going to go from cups to pints. So I have 1 pint for every 2 cups. Then I go and cancel out pints and I put in quart. So how many pints do I have in a quart? I have 2 pints in 1 quart. And then I'm going to finally do from quart to gallons. So I have 4 quarts in 1 gallon. So it looks like a lot, but remember, I'm just going to multiply this whole top row straight across in my calculator, which happens to only be 3.6 times 1,000. So my top line that I'm going to write down over here is 3,600. Now I need to multiply my bottom row all together. So I have 236, 2 times 2 times 4. And that's going to give me 3,776. And the only unit that I have left is gallons, because if I go through here, I can cross all these units out, because that's why I alternated where they were at. Now I use my calculator to do 3,600 divided by 3,776, and I get that 3.6 liters equals 0.95. I got 3 gallons. They got 951. I'm going to call that good. So I boxed that in, and that is my answer. Now let's do number 2. So we've got 600 grams, and we want to get that to pounds. So I'm going to look at my chart. And grams and pounds are both over in the mass category. So I'm going to be looking over there to see what I can do. So I'm going to go from grams. I can either go to kilograms or to ounces. But it looks like my ounces converts into pounds. So I'm going to go to ounces to pounds. A much shorter conversion than our 6 steps up there. So I've got 600 grams on top of a 1. Then I'm going to cancel out my grams for ounces. Well, I guess ounces. So I have one ounce is 28.35 grams. And then I'm going from ounces to pounds. And I have 16 ounces in 1 pound. So now I can multiply these straight across. I'm going to get 600 on top. And if I look at my units, I'm just left with pounds. And then on bottom, I need to multiply my 28.35 times 16. And I get 453.6. So now I'm going to do this division in my calculator. So 600 pounds divided by 453.6. And I get 1.32 pounds is going to weigh the same as my 600 grams. Which is what we have. So my last one, I'm going to do 100 centimeters. I'm going to get it over to yards. So looking at my length conversions, I'm going to go from centimeters to inches, because that's the only thing I have, to feet to yards. So I'm going to start with 100 centimeters over 1. And then I'm canceling out centimeters, and I'm going to go to inches. So I have 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. Then I cancel out my inches, and I'm going to go to feet. So I have 12 inches in 1 foot. I don't know why I had to look at the chart for that one. And then I'm canceling out feet for yards, and I have 3 feet for every 1 yard. So now I'm going to multiply this straight across. My top is going to be 100, and my bottom is going to be my 2.54 times 12 times 3. And I get 91.44. And then because I can cancel out all my units, I'm just left with yards on top. And I'm going to do this math now. So 100 divided by 91.44 is going to give me 1.09 yards. And if you don't know what the abbreviation is for some of these things, feel free to just write out the whole word to make sure that you get the units correct. So that's going to be the end of the dimensional analysis. We will do some of these practice problems in class. So please just come prepared with the notes so that we know what we're doing. Thank you.